Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, we're discussing what might be my favorite watch of the day. I'm shooting them in a series, as I always do, but I love Vacheron. I love JLC. I love Perpetual calendars, and I love handcrafted watches. I also love white gold, and this has them all. From Vacheron Constantin, this is the Overseas Ultra Thin Perpetual Calendar Skeleton. All of those things and much, much more. It is 41.5 millimeters in diameter and lives up to its name at 8.4 millimeters thick, and it's 48 millimeters lug-to-lug, and there is no protruding end link. One of the qualities of the ultra-thin third-generation overseas models, whether this model right here or the 2000V, which is uncommonly seen, they don't have the bracelet flare of the other models, like the self-winding and the chronograph, where the bracelet fights and flares and you can't pull it straight down. Here you can pull the bracelet 90 degrees down from the lug, so not only is it shorter across the wrist, but it fits better on a small wrist. So even though on paper, both this and the self-winding are around 41 millimeters, this wears almost like a 39, whereas the self-winding wears almost like a 42. So there's a disparity there. It is a heavy watch, though, all in white gold, and on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you really feel it. This is a timepiece, this reference 4300V, that sits super low to the wrist, and you can see how the curvature of the edge of the case and the ability to pull the bracelet straight down makes this wearable on a wrist smaller than mine. My wrist is 16 centimeters. You could wear this on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference, and I have seen ladies make it work. Part of the reason is because the watch comes on straps that are even more flexible than the bracelet. Yes, that's right. 2 straps, one in rubber, one in leather, come with this watch, and the quick release means you can transfer it to all 3 bands without tools. Heck, the straps even come with an extra deployant clasp made of white gold that allows you to use them with this watch. Taking a look at the bracelet, it's one of the best features of the model. Now, the great thing here is that you get all the features that come on a third-generation overseas, which means every single link in the bracelet is removable on both sides. You can see how there is an intermediate size link in there in case you find yourself in between sizes and you need to fine tune. You can also see that there's a sleeved 1.5 millimeter micro adjustment on either side of the clasp. The clasp is double fold and it has triggers, so it can't fly open inadvertently. You have to press them both for the clasp to open up. Another feature that I like is when you close it, you see the Maltese cross, which is the symbol of the brand. And those little sleeved micro adjustments, you can use one or both, they go right back in. Having every link of the bracelet removable means that you can size this very precisely. But if you don't want to bother and you just want to put it on a strap, there's a quick release system that's trigger based that allows you to easily remove the bracelet or the straps, depending on which you choose. I should also mention, because I always like to give time frames, that this watch was originally launched back in 2021. So the Skeleton Perpetual Calendar was launched in 2021 in both rose gold and white gold, and the ultra-thin Perpetual Calendar in white gold but with a solid dial was launched in 2016. So this watch was launched in 2021, and the specific example you see right here was sold in 2023. So it's still under warranty, and it is an 8-year warranty. The bracelet is beautifully made. As you can see, it features polish on its outer face, a lovely rolled bevel that continues the bevel of the case line, and then you have these little crevices inside the links that have been sharply faceted and mirror polished to contrast with the satination. You can also see that there's a taper of the links down toward the clasp. The hand finishing is exquisite. You'll also appreciate that it's very solid. Despite the many moving parts, it doesn't feel tinsely. It doesn't have a lot of side-to-side play. And being all of gray gold, this is a watch made of the good type of white gold, the type that never needs to be rhodium plated and is white all the way through. It's the good stuff. It's what Vacheron, Patek, Lange, De Bethune, Greubel Forsey, Jaeger-LeCoultre, and Rolex all use. Really, there are very few companies still doing rhodium plate. The most prominent is probably AP, and then a bunch of companies that sell cheaper white gold watches, but this is the good stuff. And you can see that Maltese cross motif right down the center of the links. The case is very thin, and you can see that it lives up to its name. It's nicely decorated. You could see satin. You could see both a concentric satin and a vertical satin. So the satin is in the recesses of the bezel and then polish outboard. You notice that the bezel, which sits on a little plinth, is also in the image of the Maltese cross, which is the symbol of the company. 50-meter water resistance here. This is a push-down crown, so I don't recommend you swim with this. It's good for a dress watch, but it's not enough to swim and make this a true aquatic sports watch. There are other overseas models and a handful of Cadaleals that are more water resistant and swimmable. Taking a quick look at the dial, you'll appreciate that it has been skeletonized exquisitely. Hands and all of the indices are 18-karat white gold, so they will never tarnish or oxidize. Both of the moons on the moon phase are also 18-karat gold, in this case rose gold, and the Vacheron logo that sits on top of the moon phase is also white gold. So all of these gold elements will never tarnish or oxidize or discolor, and that's why that material is used. There is actually plenty of lumen. I would say the watch is just as readable in the dark as it is in the day, maybe even a little bit more. We have blue elements on the dial, and you can see that both the Perpetual calendar module and the base caliber have been skeletonized. And there's a nice shading or opaque shading over the two moons, so you can always see both of them. You have coaxial, leap year phase, and month up at the top. Let me just demonstrate what's going on there. And then you can see we have the date over at 3 o'clock and the day over at 9. The moon phase needs to be corrected once every 122 years. The perpetual calendar, assuming you keep it running, will only need to be corrected in the year 2100. Until then, leap years, irregular length months, no adjustments necessary. Taking a look at some of the elements of the perpetual calendar, you see these little adjustments outboard, these little dimple adjusters. You can actually see the levers and the springs associated with these systems, and you can see that every piece of the module on the dial side has been extraordinarily decorated. Look at these tiny steel parts satinated on their tops and beveled on their sides. All screws mirror finished. You can see more adjusters. The mechanism over by the moon phase and the date. By the way, note the little use of constellations on the sky disk. Attention to detail. But you can see all these parts are exquisitely and excruciatingly finished down to the smallest detail. We're going to take the bracelet off now to make it a little bit easier to see the movement, which has been nickel anthracite coated to give it a nice black sheen. So across the bridges, which have been hand skeletonized and then internally hand finished, you could see a satin finish is used. So no Cote de Genève, but a brushed finish. The rotor is 22 carats, not 21, not 18, but the good stuff. We have an extraordinary skeletonized and internally beveled rotor that features the Maltese cross at center. There are many sharp interior angles where these interior hollows include bevels that come to a sharp crease. You could see satination or solarization on all of the wheels. On the back here too, every single screw mirror finished. This movement is called the 1120, and Vacheron, of course, makes it in alphabet soup, so this is the QPSQ. So QP, Quantième Perpetuel, SQ, Skelette. It is the perpetual calendar skeleton. So it's 4.05 millimeters thick, which means it's still extraordinarily thin. It beats away at a very vintagey 19,800 vibrations per hour, pivots on 36 joules. It features a free-sprung gyromax style balance for precise adjustment and also shock resistance. It's got a 40-hour power reserve courtesy of a single barrel and unidirectional winding, and yes, Geneva hallmark on both movement and case, as this is now a standard roughly since mid-2012. It's a standard for the whole watch, not just the movement. Notice, anti-magnetic. There is a soft iron ring around the movement that's designed to channel magnetic field lines around the movement, protecting the critical escapement and hairspring. So it's anti-magnetic, and it's steeled, or I should say it's hardened, up to 25,000 ampere per meter. Remember, 4,800 ampere per meter is an anti-magnetic watch under ISO 764. This is 25,000. This movement has roots at Jaeger-LeCoultre, and it was originally launched in 1967 as the JLC 920, and a Bausch paid for by the Holy Trinity, VC, Patek, and of course Audemars Piguet, only ever used by those three brands, never by JLC itself, and never by any of JLC's other customers. So this movement, which has a basic thickness of about 2.4 millimeters, was one of the first ultra-thin automatics, and it's considered one of the finest and most storied tractor calibers. That is an automatic that drives a complication in the business. It is incredibly expensive to assemble and finish, which is why, for example, AP no longer includes it on the Royal Oak Jumbo. I'm happy to see VC still using it and in fine fettle. Take a look at all those bevels. Take a look at all those polished screw heads. This is a maze, and you can get lost in it. So if you love this watch, and you know I do, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.